Welcome to Concussion Stories, a Lifeyana podcast series filled with hope. I'm here to let you know that you are not alone in your concussion recovery. I'm Melanie, and I spent more than 6 years experimenting, training, and learning in order to heal myself from a very bad case of post-concussion syndrome. And today, I feel better than ever before. In Concussion Stories, we dig deep while discussing hopeful stories of recovery as well as the hard stuff in the messy middle. If you're struggling to focus, be sure to take breaks. Down in the description of each episode, you can find a table of contents in case you want to skip ahead. Let's dive right in. Today's guest is Paige. She is 23 years old and she is from Canada. I asked Bella to record this podcast episode with me because she is on a similar mission as I am on, to spread the message that you are not alone in this concussion struggle that you're in right now. Bella is a concussion survivor and host of the Post-Concussion Podcast, where she has over 30 podcast episodes waiting for you. Be sure to check it out on postconcussioninc.com. Today, Bella will share her story with you. And it shows the honest and painful truth about brain injury, as well as all the hope in the world that you can bounce back, just like Bella. This is today's guest, Paige. Hi, Bella. Thank you for being with us right now.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I was wondering, just to start this podcast episode, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? So, where are you from? What do you like to do? Who do you like to spend your time with?
Yeah, for sure. So I have had about 10 concussions or more. I just stop at 10 because when you say more than that, it scares people. And so I am a concussion survivor. So that's me. I am 23 years old and I spend a lot of my time working actually right now. That's most of my days. Otherwise, I dirt bike, which doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense with a lot of head injuries, but I really like it. And otherwise, I spend a lot of time with my family and spend a lot of time outside. So yeah, that's me.
I already gathered from all of your posts on Instagram and your information on your website that you really like outdoor sports.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. For
This
sure.
has also always been this way in your whole life.
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I remember it would be freezing outside in the winter and my mom would have to actually drag me in the house because I would spend from 9 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night in the cold outside all day.
Yeah. And it's in that way, it's amazing that after your concussions, so many, you can still enjoy being outside and being in the outsides and doing sports outside.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really nice. And I'm not a big indoor person, so it's nice.
Yeah. How is that working out for you while doing all of your work?
I actually work outside a lot. So
really?
I bring in front of me right now, I have my full setup with the mics and all that kind of thing. But I actually take a lot of my work outside. I'll go sit on the deck or we have a gazebo, so I'm out of the bugs. And
okay.
I sit there and work there a lot because I would, rather work outside. At least in the summer, not in the winter. But yeah.
Okay, so during spring and autumn, maybe you will go outside with a blanket. Yeah, okay. I should try that too.
It's nice.
Yeah. So you say that you're still doing, what did you say, dirt
biking?
Yes.
Yeah, I do dirt biking. Yeah, it's fun.
It's like mountain biking or
with an engine, so motocross, trail riding, that kind of stuff. So a little bit faster.
Okay. And it's not like you have any fear of doing these kinds of sports after all these concussions.
I used to have fear of a lot of things. For a while, I wouldn't do anything. And then I was I'd get depressed. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. So what I was learning that without any of these sports, I was having a lot of problems mentally because I needed something else to do. So I got into archery because that's safer and less likely that I'm going to hurt my head. And then it just wasn't enough. So I started dirt biking, and I used to be a show jumper, but with the dirt biking, I'm not obsessed. So I can do it like once a week, twice a week. And I also wear a lot of protection. Like I have a big helmet and a neck brace, and there's a lot of safety aspects, but I would rather get injured doing something that I enjoy than kind of like deal with the mental health stuff of not doing it at all.
Yeah, I can fully understand. And it's also, I ask because it's amazing to see, because it's a really normal reflex to get scared after being injured. And to hear you doing all these things is really special.
It's probably why I'm injured so much, though.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it is. So like I got a lot of concussions. Most of them were, every single one of them was from sports or some activity for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell a bit about how they happened?
Yeah, for sure. So one of them was there's only a few that I tell the stories because they have good stories. So one of them was a snowboarding accident. I was 8 years old, and my friend and I raced to the bottom of, like in the middle of a hill, I guess. There's two paths to get down the ski hill. So we went two different ways, and we decided to meet in front of a jump. Now that I'm older, really bad idea. At the time, didn't think much about it. So we met in front of the jump, and I had gotten there first, and then someone flew over the jump and landed on top of me. And they were probably about 20. I was 8. So they crushed me and rolled down the hill with me. And we didn't really realize I had anything wrong with my head because, like, you have a lot of pain receptors in the rest of your body, not in your brain. So my knee hurt. So that's what I was concerned about because I was limping. And then I was dancing at the time. And I went to dance that night or the next day, and my dance teacher called my mom and said, "You need to come get Bella. Like there's something wrong." And I guess I was zoning out. I was dizzy. I couldn't stand. I wasn't talking normal. And that was one of my head injuries. Another one, yeah. And then a lot of the other ones were horse riding. I got one snowmobiling. There's this 60-foot to 100-foot ridge, and I went over the only spot that happened to have a rock. And flew over my sled into the ground. So yeah, it's pretty like really freak. It's just when I got injured badly. Like I didn't fall off my horses like at all, but when I did, it was bad. So there was always like those kinds of things. Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of bad luck.
Yeah.
While doing sports. And I know that for a lot of us with concussion, we already are quite traumatized by having one concussion.
Mm-hmm.
How has it been for you to have multiple?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't really care because I was just stubborn and young, and like I was really into show jumping, and I was addicted, and like at the point where like I had coaches telling me what level I was going to get to, and it was just I didn't see myself doing anything else. So I just kind of ignored a lot of it. And the first few concussions, they healed in a few weeks, but actually what I ended up with was like the subconcussive, like the impact of all of them is what created the problem, not one particular concussion. Was like I got a concussion and all these problems started. I've hit my head so many times now that it's creating all of these problems kind of thing. But I never really got like discouraged or anything. I felt I had headaches every day for about 7 years, and I still didn't stop. I just the only thing I was nervous, like, so last year or like this past winter, I went skating for the first time ever since I was probably like 10 or 12 years old. So it had been over 10 years. And I like just had a hat on, and we were just skating at my sister's house. They have a hockey rink, and I was like, I'm actually really nervous because the fear of hitting my head for things that I'm not comfortable with. So like riding a horse feels natural. For some reason, riding a dirt bike, it's the same movement. So natural, but like skating doesn't feel safe. Or snowboarding, when there's not a lot of snow, I'll go down the hill once and I'll leave because It makes me nervous. And then I don't like doing things when I'm nervous. Like I was dirt biking the other day and we were trail riding. So all of a sudden there was like a hill. And I mean, like it was so big and so steep that when my friend went down it, he disappeared going down the hill. Like I didn't see, I'm at the top and like it's so steep that like he went away and then I saw him at the bottom. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go down that. And I'm like watching because like I haven't been riding for that long. And I was like, no, now I'm nervous. So now I can't, because if I'm nervous, I won't do it. Because I'm like, I can't be overthinking it with the risk of the head injuries. Like I have to play it smart. So I just went a different way.
So you do have boundaries.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And now you're at your in your life, you're at this place where you're now helping other people, especially with concussion awareness. And how do you feel about people sustaining a concussion and then they should take it easy? Well, that's at least what doctors say, in order to avoid sustaining more injuries. But on the other hand, you have this philosophy, which I really admire, that living sometimes is more important than the risk of sustaining more injury.
For sure. Yeah.
How do you combine? What is your vision about this?
So my biggest problem with the head injury world, and I try to not only talk about sports because it's not just sports, and that's a big problem that's with the news right now, is they only see sports and forget about everyone else. But my thing is, you need to take the break. So that's where I made a big mistake, is I was hitting my head, or I'd hit my head, and then I was horse showing the next week. And I was competing and I never took the break, and never taking the break and ignoring it all and just kind of being a stubborn teenager led me with way worse symptoms. I believe my recovery took way longer because of my inability to stop doing things that put myself at risk. But it's also important to let your, like, to live, but like after the initial impact, like putting yourself at risk doesn't make sense. It's just, as a teenager, I also understand how stubborn we can be. Like we were talking the other day, how like if I got a concussion right now and I got to the level of riding that I was like planning to get to, and say I had like this huge horse show or Olympic level show to go to next week, I would have told you to get out of my face. I'm going anyways. Because it's interesting how competitive you get. Like I get that point too. So it's hard to say that, like, no, you shouldn't. Like, I definitely should not do that. But I also get the addiction side of not being able to slow down your life, right?
I don't know if you even should call it addiction. There's also just sense in living freely, especially after hardship.
But but it is a little bit of an obsession. Like, as an athlete, like, you're obsessed with playing and being on the field or whatever sport you do. Or like just your life, like maybe you really enjoy your job, but being in front of screens for 10 hours a day isn't helping you, but you love your job. Like it's hard to know where to step back and where not to, and you just have to figure out what limits work for you.
Yes, exactly. When has your last injury been?
3 years ago, 3 winters ago, I think. Was the last concussion, or maybe 4, 3, I think. It's been a lot, so yeah.
Yeah. And how long did it take for you to feel better after that one, or have you been feeling better after that one?
The most recent one that I received was actually the snowmobile accident that I mentioned with the rock, and that one actually, it didn't make anything that much worse. Like I was already not doing great. I was doing a lot better than I had been, but not amazing. My fear with that was actually more mental than physical, because I was terrified that I was going backwards, because like in the last 2 years before that, I had made a lot of progress, like health wise, head injury wise. Like we had figured out a lot of things that were helping me and I was making progress. So to hit my head again, it's a big fear complex. We talk about this a lot with what I do, that when you hit your head again after a concussion, it kind of is terrifying because your brain spirals. Like I remember being really upset that day And I was in a lot of pain, but it was more the fear that, did I just set myself back 2 years? I don't want to go through that again. Like that part happens. And like, it was more that time than the actual symptoms getting worse. It was more just dealing with the mental fact that just carry on with what you're doing. You know what you're doing is working. Like try to not overthink what just happened to you kind of situation.
Yeah. I really recognize this awareness of, sorry, I'm not going to curse, but did I just make things so much worse? There was, for me, in about 3 years ago, I had a snowboarding accident, just a small one.
Yeah.
But I just fell down so hard. And then I was like, what happened to my head right now? And for 4 days or so, I couldn't sleep just because I was like, what is something happening? What am I feeling? And this is a really bad spiral to be in, as you say, because you're not focusing on the good things. So you're only reinforcing the bad things.
Yeah.
How are you feeling now? Where are you on your road to recovery? Would you say?
For sure. I would never consider myself, you say you're recovered, which is wonderful. I can't say that because I still deal with a lot of concussion related symptoms that your typical person doesn't deal with. Like I have light sensitivity, I have noise sensitivity still, like lots of those kinds of things haven't gone away, but they're a lot better than they were. But now I've just considered that like I live an adaptive lifestyle. Like I'm very happy with my life. I don't live in pain every day, but I know it triggers pain. Sugar does. Like if I eat like a cupcake, I will feel it in an hour because it's a lot of sugar and things like that. So like diet is a big thing for me. And I carry noise canceling headphones everywhere I go. They're little, they go in my ears, you can't see them. And like things like that. I wear a hat in the summer all the time because the sun. When I go to the lake and it's really hot, I actually dunk my head every hour because I find it cools off my head and then I don't get a headache the next day from being in the sun all day. So it's just living a life that works for me. I wouldn't say that I'm like symptom free and I don't think about it anymore, but it's just part of my day now. I don't think, like I always use the dentist as an example. So I go to the dentist and when I go, I bring real sunglasses, headphones with music, and I cancel my day and I have someone drive me and pick me up. And that is because I'm sometimes really dizzy after, not always. And the headphones help with the scraping noise because my ears are really sensitive. The real sunglasses help with the light. Like it's just part of my life now. I don't think about it, but it's definitely things that I have to do so that I don't trigger like headaches and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. And because of living this adaptive lifestyle, you're able to do all the work that you're doing with your podcast. Which is not only that, but people don't see there's a whole business behind it. Of course, you have to arrange so many things, be in communication with so many people. That's really amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I over pushed it I think I launched the podcast this past January, and then I started my master's at the same time in neuroscience. And I was doing like the podcast and that, and I only lasted about 4 or 5 weeks. And then I shut down because I just was overdoing it. I was doing the podcast stuff and all that, which is way more hours a day than people think. And then I was also in a master's program, which is a lot of hours. So it was too many hours on a screen. Like the combination of all of it, like I burnt myself out really hard where I almost quit all of it. So I decided to take a step back from the master's because I'm really enjoying the helping people. Like the connections are great and like making a difference to me is more important right now. So I had to choose. Like that's something that happens with concussions a lot is what is worth your health? Because like sometimes you're going to do things that you know are going to make yourself worse that the next day. But is it worth it? Because sometimes it is. Like sometimes my family stuff that I'll do, because I have a very crazy loud family. And if I do stuff with them all weekend, well, Monday's going to be a quiet day for me because I kind of probably pushed myself too much. But that's okay because to me that was worth it. So it's just finding a balance that works for you.
Yeah, I understand. And it sounds like you're well, of course, sometimes you move into the in the wrong direction.
Sometimes.
But it matters how fast you get up. Of course, that's the that all of us know. And it sounds like you already know how to correct yourself if you feel like this isn't working.
Yeah, I'm better with that. Where I used to get really mad, like or I'd get kind of depressed. So like I'd go a week without a really bad headache, and then all of a sudden, say Tuesday, I'm out. Like I'm in bed for 24 hours. I'm in the dark because I could barely stand up, kind of thing, because I did something. And I used to get really mad, and then that would last a week because of the mental part of being like, I can't believe we're back into this. Like, are we really back in bed? Like, how did I live like this before? But now I'm a lot better at tomorrow is another day and we can start it over. And then I bounce back a lot quicker than I used to.
Good for you.
Yeah,
that's really helpful, especially in generally in your whole life, right? Yeah. And how has your experience with the medical system been in this whole process?
I have seen, I always say 100 doctors. It might not be that high, but it feels like it. Not just doctors, but specialists. Like I've been doing this for, I think this is 9 years or more of dealing with specialists. So I've had a very different experience. So I've had doctor's appointments, like people that have changed my life. I had a dietitian that helped me relearn how to eat again because one medication I was on made me lose 20 pounds in 3 months, and I didn't have 20 pounds to lose. And I actually got something called pharmaceutical anorexia. So I wasn't able to eat. And she spent a year with me reteaching myself how to eat. And then I really liked that she wouldn't get mad because I wouldn't reach goals. Like I wouldn't eat as much as I was planning to that week. And like sometimes it took a month to actually reach the goal of the first week. And that made a big difference for me. But then other times there was medical professionals that I saw and I wouldn't see them again because one appointment I'd be done. And that happened a couple times. One of them, I'm not a big fan. So my theory with all of the treatment that I do is that it's reversal. So I will take a pill, but I can stop taking it. I will do therapy, but I can stop the therapy. But I won't do Botox because to me, it's something that's permanent. So I'm one of those people that like, there's all those scary like side effects on the pill bottle. I get one of them almost always. Or I get one that's not even on the pill bottle and the doctor goes, I can't believe you're dealing with this. I'm like, I don't know. Like I had night terrors once from one and they're like, this is a really rare side effect. I'm like, great. I can't sleep. So that was kind of like my situation. So doctors that were like, well, this is your only option. I didn't like that. Like I liked kind of coming up with a plan together. So doctors that were like, well, you do Botox or we can't start anything else. And I'm like, well, then I'm going somewhere else. And that's what would happen. And it happened a few times. Or some like they do the pill regimen. So it's like you come in, you try it for 3 months. They give you another pill. You try again for 3 months. And like I did that. Like I've done kind of a variety of everything. My family, we call them witch doctors, seen a few of those because they're not traditional, but they do things that maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it's all worth a shot. So that was kind of my personality while going through it is I try it. Like I will try it because I can stop doing it, right? Like I like that piece of like anything I do medically. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least I know I tried. I don't like the idea of being like not really against trying like new alternative methods and things like that. So yeah.
Okay, so it's been a very diverse
yes.
scala. Yeah. But so on the one hand, you had the doctor experiences where you're coming and you're going again because there was nothing really that they could do. On the other hand, you found like this
great
dietitian who really helped you forward. Yeah, that's really good to hear. How do you say that? Moving forward with this, you also wrote on your website that sometimes in the medical system, you missed the mental health perspective.
Yes, it's huge.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
For sure. So I was severely depressed when this started. I guess after, like when I always say I hit a wall. So when I hit my wall, I got severely depressed because I all of a sudden couldn't do anything. So I was either in bed at the doctor's or in hospital. And that was kind of my life for about a year or two. And nobody ever mentioned my mental health. Like no one really said anything. Like there was a few times there was suggestions like, oh, you should go to this counselor. And there was a few times where I did go to counselors, but I never lasted more than a session because I didn't like what they had to say. Stubborn teenager side of who I was. And nobody ever mentioned it. And even I went to one of the largest concussion conferences in North America for sports. And I sat there for 12-hour days and no one mentioned mental health. And it was about neuroscience, but still it was never brought up about any other patients or anything. And that, to me, that was really concerning because I ended up being forced. I had mandatory therapy is what I ended up with because I intentionally overdosed a few years ago. So then it was either you go into the hospital and stay, or you go into outpatient but mandatory therapy. So I did that. And I finally had a therapist that worked with me. We clicked. And that's also where I learned the importance of therapy because all the time I was always like, well, I have really good parents. I have really great siblings. I have really close friends. Why do I need a therapist when I can talk to them? And I didn't realize that that's not what the therapy was for. For me, I didn't need to just vent to someone. That's not what I needed it for. I needed it for the tools that she gave me because I had really bad mental health. And we talked about that spiraling of your head. Well, mine was really bad, extreme, very suicidal, very depressive. So what she gave me was tools to stop the thoughts. And that is what changed my life. So I always say that like my puzzle was almost done for like my version of recovery and healing. And the mental health was like the biggest piece of the puzzle at the end that just kept getting missed. Or like I'd go to one therapy session and I didn't click with them. And I didn't realize that I could have kept trying because you have to find one that matches with you. But a lot of doctors, they just didn't really see it. But I was also one of those people that the thing is this injury is invisible. All of it is invisible. And I was better at making it even more invisible than it was because I hid a lot of it. So I think a lot of that was on me as well.
Yes. I did the same, and we are not the only ones, we know, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm really sorry to hear all this, and I'm really, really glad that you are where you are now.
Yeah.
Because it's quite the story. So this did you say doctor that gave you the pills that stopped your thoughts?
No, tools to stop them. So
tools.
Like, yeah, so like mental health tools, like spelling a word forward and like more like grounding tools and distraction tools just to get the thoughts from not spiraling to extreme levels. So yeah.
Yes. Okay, then I misunderstood. But then that's even better because then you have those tools again for life.
Yes, exactly.
And it's really wonderful to see, and also for our listeners to hear that even if you're feeling the way that you just described, years later you can be in this place where you're now helping people and inspiring people to live a better life.
Yeah, for sure. And it made, like I always say, therapy saved my life, and I'm not kidding. It really did. It really did save my life. Like it made the world of a difference for everything for me.
I was wondering also, what are things that you can do today that you wouldn't thought you could be doing again in the future?
Yeah, for sure. I can read. It's a nice one. It's my favorite one because I couldn't read for a really long time. And before my injuries, I used to read a book a day. I was like a book nerd. I had books like we go on vacation, I'd bring 5 books. Like, like I always had 2 in my purse because just in case if I finished the first one, I had a backup one. And that's how I was as a kid. So losing the ability to read and my memory was probably the biggest thing. Was I could read the page, but I couldn't tell you what I read. So that was like a really big problem. Doing university with that was very difficult, but getting my memory back was really big. And the non-daily headaches, I honestly thought I would never stop having a headache every single day for about 7 years is something you don't expect to ever go away because you don't believe it will. And I didn't believe it would. And when they started to like fade away, I almost, the mental side of it was kind of weird because I would almost create a headache sometimes because I'd be so worried. Or like, I remember I went a week without a headache once, and I think I cried at the end of the week because I was just like, wow, like I didn't know I could live like this. And then, so that was really great. But I also went through like, when the bad headaches came back, it was remembering that, okay, this isn't permanent again. Like I had to remind myself that like, you cannot have these headaches. And so those kinds of things were really important to me. It was getting rid of the headaches, the memory. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything that I can't do. There's just some things that I shouldn't do is kind of how I say it now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. That's a really important realization that you've had, and I have had too, that when you're in the middle of it, it can feel like what happened yesterday will happen tomorrow again.
Yeah.
But that is so not true.
Mhm.
And your story proves it, and mine too. And that's very important. That's a very important lesson that I want to convey to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I was wondering that coming from your story and also doing what you're doing right now, are these the motivations to, for example, do your master's again and also do the podcast?
So the podcast came from my brother, actually.
Okay.
So I started it, I guess, over a year ago now. He was like, do a podcast, do a podcast, do a podcast. And I said, yeah, okay, we'll see. Like, I really want to help people, but maybe I'll just do a blog or something. And so I actually bought all the podcast equipment, and it probably sat for about like a few months. And I had it all set up, but I didn't do anything with it. And actually, once I recorded a few episodes, I didn't release them at first. It took me forever. I was like, oh, it's going to launch this month. And my dad's like, oh, can't wait. And I'm like, next month. Because I was so nervous. And that is a big thing. And it is a lot of work. There's definitely times where I've been like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why are you, like, you are putting in so much time and effort for this? But I get messages almost daily and sometimes a few a day. And they usually make me cry. And helping people, it's like the biggest part of it, and trying to help people prevent them from doing what I did wrong, because I made a lot of mistakes, and knowing that I can prevent people from doing, at least going through this as long as I did, or maybe as intense as I did, or their family too, is something I focus on a lot, because it wasn't just me going through this. It was my siblings, it was my partner, it was my parents, and we miss all of that. Everyone always focuses on me, and they forgot that, well, my little sister doesn't understand what's going on because her big sister can't go to school or can barely remember yesterday and things like that. Or my parents wanted to help but couldn't. So that was really hard on them. So I try to focus on a lot of that, and that kind of keeps the motivation going for sure.
That's a beautiful story. And I find it, I really find it wonderful that from all of that came this, and helping people experience less of the hard things that you experienced. I think it's the most beautiful thing that you could get out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
It was really nice for me to speak with you in general. So aside from the episode, because every time, every concussion story, again, touches me. And I'm very happy that you're sharing your story and helping people, giving this positive power, positive energy, sending it into the world. And thank you, Bella.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
Now I would love to hear from you. What do you take away from this episode? Is there something that you can apply to your life right away? Head on over to lifeyana.com and leave your comment now, or you can leave it below this video. And if you want to hear and read more concussion stories, actionable steps, and inspiration, be sure to subscribe to the Lifeyana email list while you're there, so that you never miss out on new materials we constantly make for you. Thank you for listening to this Concussion Stories episode by Lifeyana. May you be well, and may you be happy.